Welcome to day 5 of the Building Your ATS in HubSpot series. So let's just recap. Day 1, overview and the building blocks of how you're going to build this, the steps of the building process, designing your hiring process, creating a list of asset needs. We covered that yesterday. Now we're talking about adding the automation definitions. Now, there are a couple of ways that people can do this. I personally like to write things out first and then to design it. Some people would rather create them as a schematic. So, if you want to write it out like I did, you would write it out like this. And I'm doing it in red stickies for workflows. Remember, we went over the yellow stickies for the assets needed. Now, when we do this, what you could also do is, make a copy of this, put it in another tab, and then actually design the workflows, all right? So what we did here is I outlined what is the trigger, what is the if-then requirement, branch 1, branch 2, action 1, action 2, right? That way we have this all defined so we know everything that we need to do. Here we're identifying variables that we might have to plug in later, and so that when we're making the build plan, which is what we're going to do tomorrow, like the step by step, I'm going to make custom properties, I'm going to make forms, I'm going to make workflows with all of that. Here we identify more needs. So if when we're outlining our workflows, you discover another need, you just drop on down, add another little sticky note, okay? Another thing to do when you're creating this, and so I will be sharing this Lucid on the last day, on Friday of this series, so that you can have this and you can use it. And then my course also goes through all the HubSpot parts. So this has been largely focused on how do you actually get there, right? Because we all know where the buttons are in HubSpot and all the, all the settings and all of that stuff. But how do you actually take the concept of, I want an ATS in HubSpot and make it a reality? And while this is focused on an ATS, this is applicable across the board, right? Okay, so here is what we're going to look at. Just an example. So here's a workflow for the applicant form submission with screening questions. Right here I have workflow per role. Why? Because this is going to have a gigantic if-then branch, right? We're going to have for every single screening question what passes or not, right? And so if we do that times all these if-then branches, that's a massive workflow to manage. And I'm all about healthy workflow management. Use if-then branches when we're following the same process for the same group of people. But when we're getting super complex into different groups, organize your workflows, name them properly, put them in folders, all that good stuff. Okay, so we have our if-then branch. And so then in this process, we create a ticket or record in the screening pass stage. We check a box. Remember, we want this property that tells us what stage and all of the stages they made it to. That way, we can make active lists that say, hey, anybody who made it to second interview and applied as a solutions consultant, if it's our hiring process, let's let them know when we have a new role open because we'd be interested in continuing to talk to them, right? And so we want to get all of that stuff in there. All right, so then now we have branch 2. If they didn't pass screening, they go into the first stage, application received. Then we also have a notification on a hiring manager, and then we wait 24 hours, and then we notify them again. And again, there'd be a condition here. There'd be another if-then branch, only if the person is still in that stage, right? Because we want to move them along. Because if somebody is not hired, then we want to let them know right away so that they can know whether they're still in the job process or not, right? And so outlining these things, then we get into the next one. This is a general one if the test was submitted, because in our hiring process, we go screening pass, manual review. If we pass, now we have an email with the cognitive and the behavioral test, right? And so now what we're doing, stage reached of screening passed, we send the email inviting to testing. We delay 24 hours, then an if-then branch. Test submitted, and this would be identified because how we've hooked in our predictive index system will populate the values for what the profile is and for what the cognitive score was. And actually, I'm on the wrong workflow. This one is over here about passing the test, but sending the test is a general workflow. It's the same to everybody. And then we have an 24-hour delay if-then branch because we give them 48 hours to submit the test. Okay. So then if they submit it, we check the box that says test got completed. If they didn't, we send them a reminder email, another if-then branch, same thing, goes on and on and on, right? Now we go to the next one. This is another one per role. Why? Because we have a different behavioral profile requirement and we might have different cognitive requirements based on our experience required. So for example, cognitive is how fast you learn things. If you're coming in as a solutions consultant and you don't know HubSpot, we're going to want you to have a high cognitive score so that we know you're going to be able to learn fast. Now, if we're looking for somebody with 7 years of experience, then that might have a different requirement for us. Same with the behavioral profiles, different roles, different profiles work well. So then again, we have another trigger that the test properties are known, if-then branch based on the requirements. If they pass it, again, we update the property, we update the stage. and we send them the video email. If they didn't pass it, then they move to not hired. So this is how you continue to go along, outline all of your workflows, right? So now we're going to zoom out here. We've done a lot of work. So tomorrow what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through, and I'm going to build this live on the video. I'm actually going to outline the order of operations of how you would actually get this done. Because this is 400 small tasks. And so if there is not an organized method, if it doesn't all tie together, you're not going to get there. This is where people get stuck. I mean, yeah, some of the workflow logic, like none of this is complex logic though. It's all about having a way to go through the process, which is, yes, I wanted to share this, which is why I wanted to do this, because I wanted to share the ATS process with you, everything that led up to what's in our masterclass, the course, free course that goes through click by click with IORads, how to build this into HubSpot. But this is, how is the logic going to get you there? Because if you need to do that internally, or if you're getting started with HubSpot as a consultant, this is how you get from point A to point B. So tomorrow we're actually going to build that route to know how we're actually going to get to that destination. I look forward to seeing you then.